All right, Drew, what's up, dude?
How's it going?
Man, it is amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. And a little early on your end. I always kind of fumbled with this as far as thinking that, oh, my time noon, but then somebody else is like 6 a.m. So I apologize, but thank you for taking the time today, my dude.
Yeah, no problem.
This is
I'm
this is
excited.
awesome. Yeah, hell yeah, me too. This has been a long time coming as well. We've been kind of back and forth and different schedule things, and but you know what? We're here today, and I appreciate the shit out of it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. So now as far as, like we're going to be, obviously with these things, we're digging into, the earlier memories, but, kind of, inspired by my earlier memories of things as well, as far as us being horror fans and, kind of in the introduction to this mentioned, you kind of taking it all the way and starting from like earlier friends or making movies with friends and then kind of going and making Party Massacre. Like so sick, man. I absolutely love seeing all the content that you have on here and the wild energy you continually have. So you do great, man. It's fucking great. It's awesome. Contagious.
Oh, dude, thank you. I mean, I'm just a horror nerd that's trying to live his dream, man.
Yeah, totally. I dig. So, I mean, even before that, from an earlier memory, just as far as I know that you mentioned your parents being really big into film and it always being something, around. What was an earlier memory as far as, like maybe a television series or a movie that really caught your attention and resonated with you as opposed to somebody else saying, oh, you should love The Wizard of Oz, or you should, something that really stuck out to like, man, this is awesome. I love this.
Oh man, I mean, I've been surrounded by movies like my whole childhood. My parents were super into movies. They didn't work in movies, but they loved watching movies. So it was an event in our house, like multiple nights a week were movie night. So I just was always watching movies. But some of the earliest memories of movies that's like stuck, that resonated with me, that I became a fan of, were like Monster Squad was probably one of the first. Like,
Really?
yeah, like I would like make all of my friends watch Monster Squad when it came out, and
Awesome.
I was like the right age too when it came out. Like I was a little kid, so
Okay.
like I wanted to be those kids. Like I wanted to build a treehouse and I wanted to fight monsters.
Now, did like obviously not the monster, well, hopefully not the monster part, but did there time, come a time where you badgered your dad enough or your parents where it was like, okay, we will get you a treehouse, we'll figure this out, or did that never come?
Well, we didn't have a tree that could support a treehouse,
Oh, okay.
so that was not even an option. But my dad built me like a fort. Like it was even better than a
Oh,
treehouse. My dad's rad, and so like when I showed interest in that, it was something he could do with his son, like his only son. So yeah, we built in our backyard, like hidden in the jungle, as I would say, but like kind of hidden behind some trees in the corner of the yard, like an elevated fort that had a trap door out the bottom so I could escape if
oh,
somebody was trying to break in, and like the door dropped down and was a ladder, but I could pull it up and lock it from the inside, and it was
oh
rad. Like
shit. All
yeah, it had
corners
like a
covered, like bringing
uh
the snacks, the trap door, everything.
yeah, it and it also had a window because that's important.
Yes, that's awesome. I
But
love that.
but yeah,
Go ahead.
it was
Sorry.
like our clubhouse. It was carpeted, like it was nice. Like looking back on it, I was like, man, I don't know if I could make my son something that cool.
Right. It's so funny too, thinking back of that stuff and like, being the little kid in that moment and like, oh, come on, Dad, you can't help me with, just help me make a fort. And it's like now being a parent and thinking of all the shit that like my kids ask of me and like want me to like do. I'm like, oh my, how the hell am I gonna make this? Or what?
Yeah,
What do you expect me? I'm a fucking woodworker.
sure. Or even just like the value of time. Like when you're a kid, you have
Yeah,
no
yeah.
concept of it. I'm
Hmm.
actually going through that with my son right now. He's 16 and he needs to take his driver's test,
Yeah.
and his appointment isn't for a week, but so he keeps asking me to go do standby. He's like, "Can we just go standby? Like we might have to be there for 8 hours, but it'll be worth it because I'll get my driver's license a couple of days early."
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I'm like,
okay.
"Do you know what it's like to give up an entire day to sit at a DMV? Like no concept of this as a kid, but as an adult, that's possibly the worst scenario ever."
One day off out of the week and it's spent there. Yeah, touche.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned too, one of the things I loved and I wanted to dig into was, your parents having, almost the sense of like a video rental at your house and all these VHS tapes that were, a kind of bootlegged in a sense and having a library. But aside from that, what about your local theater or your local video rental? What comes to mind as far as, special moments or special things about these places, that really still keep in memory to you?
Well, I mean, I definitely remember the video rental place from when I was really small, like probably single digits. Just I remember the
Oh.
things that stick out about that are the horror section because I was fascinated with the horror section and all the VHS covers. Like I would just sit there and stare. And my most vivid memory actually is the Evil Dead 2 cover and like
Okay.
being obsessed with the skull with the eyes, like and wondering what that would be. And I have like memories of a bunch of the VHS covers, and then like coinciding memories of finally watching them and being fascinated by the fact that the covers had nothing to do with the movies, like Evil Dead
Right.
2. Like there's never a skull with moving human live
In the
eyeballs in it.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and like sleepaway camp, thinking like, oh my god, why did they stab that shoe? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And then no shoe ever gets stabbed. Which is
Yeah.
kind of where the poster for Pool Party came, like that. There's never a fake girl with no skin on her face, like drinking a cocktail.
Oh
Um,
shit, I love
but
that.
like I remember that horror section vividly. But then they opened a video rental place closer to my house called Video Lake, and so my whole like from 10 on until I moved out of California, that was my spot. Like my friends work, like I had friends that worked there throughout high school, and the guy that ran it, his name was Kelly, like became a really good friend of ours, and is still one of my friends. So like that was a place I would hang out, and I could rent anything. I'm pretty sure Kelly can't get in trouble for this 20 years later, but like he would let us rent whatever we wanted. We didn't have to worry about ratings or things like that. And he knew a lot about movies and would recommend them. And so I have like great memories. And that's where my mom would rent. Like she would go and get 5 movies at a time and bring them home and bootleg them for
Oh
our
shit.
library.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, with now initially you said so you grew up initially in California, and was that where you moved into Nevada, or was this
Um,
after even or
so I
before?
grew up in California. I didn't move to Las Vegas until after high school. I moved here to go to college.
Oh shit. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I
So where
grew up.
where was that video spot that you grew up near? Uh-oh. I got you
Oh,
back.
I know. Am I back?
There
Okay.
you go.
My mom called me and it screwed everything up.
Yeah, that'll
So
happen.
let's hope she doesn't call again.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. No, so when you moved from California though, where was that spot that had that video rental you're mentioning?
So the my early years, like where I have the vivid, where they had a really distinct like horror section. It was kind of around a corner. Like the horror section was in the back around a corner, and then there was the red curtain for the adult section, like back by the horror section.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and I always have a hard time remembering what it was, what the store was even called. And I've asked some of my friends that grew up with me, and no one remembers. Like for some reason, I thought it was like either Showtime or Showcase Video, but it was just a little mom and pop video store in
That's
like
awesome.
a random shopping center in El Toro, California. And then
Okay. That's
and then
sick.
luckily they opened Video Lake, which was closer to my house. It didn't have a lake.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why they named it that, but it was
Okay.
not. It wasn't as cool of a video store. Like it was just a typical like storefront. Like it didn't have a dark alcove in the back. It didn't have an adult section. It didn't have anything like that. But what it
Oh,
did have
okay.
was tons of movies and a manager that would let me rent whatever I want. So that was way better.
You're like, man, this store's just like the covers that don't make sense. I come in here expecting there's a fucking lake, and I don't see one.
Yeah, like who? What the fuck? But I mean the like in that era, like your video store. I mean, if you're like a movie nerd, like we were, or even if you're just a fan of movies, actually, you didn't have to be a movie nerd. Your video store was it was a lot of like it was where you got your movies, obviously, like that's the no-brainer. But it was also like a place that you would bump into friends, or you would meet friends there, because it was like if you were grounded, you were still allowed to go get movies or go with your
Mm.
parents, your mom, to rent a movie. So I mean, but it was also like a resource. Like it was my like Wikipedia or Google, because when I
Yeah.
had questions about actors or movies or even like songs in movies, like my instinct was to call Kelly at Video Lake. Just call like the
Okay.
the business line, because we didn't have cell phones, and he would
Yeah.
answer, and then I'd be like, Kelly, it's Drew Marvick. Hey, I got a question. You know that guy? He's in the beginning of this movie, but he's also in another movie where there's like a helicopter and maybe a girl that has shaved. I don't know. And then he would almost always know it. And that's just now you can just go to IMDb and scroll through.
Right.
But back in the day, you had to call Kelly at Video Lake.
I always
Sometimes
wondered
he'd
too,
have.
because like, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going. Sometimes he'd have to call you back. He'd be like, "I'm really busy. I'll call you back." And you'd hang up, and you'd be like sitting in your room waiting for Kelly to call you back to like let you know who it was. Like, what's the actor's name that with the chain mail in the movie Commando, and what else was he
Oh
in?
man,
You know?
it is so funny. I mean, and thinking back to those times, I laugh so much just because of like being there, like that being a thing, as opposed to being able to just jump right online. I almost wonder if that's like if that was a weight off of their shoulders once the internet came around, or if that was kind of like a moment of like, oh fuck, I feel like not needed anymore. It's
Yeah,
kind of weird to think back at that.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's like when your kids go off to college and you don't,
Yeah.
you have
Right.
no, you're not needed. It's like relief for a minute, and then you're like, oh my god,
Yeah,
what is my
nobody's calling
what
it anymore.
is my
Shit.
what is my purpose? I would have I would imagine it was like one of the first nails in the coffin, or maybe it was one
Yeah.
of the last nails in the coffin. But because people would even go, like I would go to the video store to look for things just to answer questions
Hmm.
and like
Yep.
compare things and be like, oh my god, like Vernon Wells, like oh my god, is the dude from Commando and the Chainmail really the same dude from Mad Max 2? There's no way. We gotta go. Let's call Kelly. He didn't answer. Let's ride our bikes to Video Lake. Like we need to get to the
Right.
bottom of this. Like, and that's what we
This is
we would
not going to
do.
go unanswered.
Yeah, I I actually I actually remember sitting like in my room with friends on a sleepover with a phone book out, calling other video stores because like my Kelly didn't know the answer, so I was like, all right, let's get the phone book, and we were just calling other like neighboring cities video stores I'd never heard of and asking
Oh
them
shit.
until we could get to the bottom, and no one was ever like mad. I mean, that was part of
Yeah.
running a video store.
Yeah,
So
right, right. Oh man, that's so great. I love hearing that shit too, because I mean, it's just like memories of. I guess nowadays, like we still have record shops to where that's kind of comparative. Being able to go in and like, hey, I really like this band, or I really like this type of this record, but the other albums don't rock. What is it that you could put me onto? I guess it still kind of
it's true.
exists, but
It does.
movies wise,
It
it's
does,
tough.
but yeah, it does. And record stores, I guess if you have a good record store, you have this other hurdle though. Like, there's a little bit of like an elitist mentality. Sometimes you'll go into a record store
Yeah,
and the dude like he doesn't want you to know what's good.
yeah, that's
Like,
true.
you know,
That's true.
these are they're like they're gatekeepers. But I feel like it never happened at my at your local video store. They were
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, maybe it did. I mean, actually, maybe they were. Maybe I just was so young and dumb I didn't know it that they were like they were keeping the good stuff from me. But not Kelly.
Yeah,
He would never do that.
yeah. Shout out to him, man. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. What about particular scenes? So maybe not even necessarily in horror. You mentioned Commando, and some of the sweet action shit that we had, in the 80s and 70s and whatnot. Within these, what are three scenes that just come to mind that just have forever been engraved in your brain? Maybe they were disgusting. Maybe you didn't know how they even accomplished this. Sad, disturbing. What comes to mind?
I mean, I wow, that's a good question. I mean, I was obsessed with trying to figure out how things were done. Not to the level that I wanted to ever be an effects artist necessarily, but I was always fascinated by it. Like I watched all the Faces of Death movies when I was
Oh,
younger, and so like
yeah.
figuring those. out, and I also took, like, I was in photography classes from as early as I could. So I think it was eighth grade was like the first, and then like film class. Like I took film classes in night school throughout high school. So I mean, at a
Mm.
pretty early age, I knew a little bit more, I guess, than the average kid. Like I certainly didn't know a lot. I didn't get a ton of knowledge from our like adult education system, the video television production class, but I gained a basic knowledge that, like, watching Faces of Death, for instance, I was the first of my friends to be like, wait, this can't be real footage of this dad filming his kids because there's three camera angles. Like, wait a second, this makes
Yeah.
no this makes no sense. Like, it's supposed to be a dad with his camcorder, but how do we cut to the rooftop? And then how do we
Yeah.
cut to a camera on the boat that he was just filming that only had one person on it? Like, wait a second, this makes no sense. And my friends would argue, like, well, it's real, it's real. I'm like, it's not. He can't, the cameraman's on the boat now all of a sudden, and then he's back on the shore. So, like, I do remember being obsessed with figuring, like, those things out, and
Okay.
and how they would shoot things. Like American Werewolf in London, that transformation scene, like, very much sticks out to me because I would rewatch that all the time, like, for sure.
Still
I
today.
also, yeah,
Insane.
still. I mean, there's a few scenes that we just, like, I would watch a lot, like, especially in high school or like early teens, because like you would carry. I guess I was lucky enough. My mom would record all these movies that we rented to have them, so I had access to cassettes because you couldn't buy them from your rent. They were like 100, whatever, at least $100,
Right.
$200 a tape. So, like, a 14-year-old kid, you couldn't buy a copy of a movie. And if you accidentally lost it and had to pay for it, it was the end of the world. So I was lucky enough to have I could have any movie. I could ask my mom to record me anything I wanted, and she would. Like, not even worrying about censorship. Like, as long as it wasn't a porno, I could give her
Right.
anything and she would dub it for me. So I would carry cassettes, like, in my backpack. Like, on the weekends when we would have sleepovers, like, I would have VHS tapes in my backpack. I would ride my skateboard to my friend's house and be like, "Have you ever heard of Shock 'em Dead? This is gonna blow your mind." Like, and so we would do like a ton of that. And Shock 'em Dead is another movie that I have tons of memories of just watching. Not even a particular scene though, necessarily, just
Okay.
the entirety of that movie. And same, and then, but I mean, things like you asked about scenes, like probably the head crush in The Toxic Avenger was another one
Oh man, yeah.
that was like just over and over and over again. Like, those are the kinds of things that I was like, how do we do this? And how do like, I want to do this. I don't want to crush people's heads with a car, but in real life, just a disclaimer.
Right.
But I really wanted to figure out how to do it, and
Oh man.
and now I know.
It's so it's funny too that because you mentioned with Faces of Death, and that was like such a juxtaposition for me because I remember so many weekends with my buddies having Coke and pizza just completely ruined by them wanting to rent these movies. I loved horror, but the Faces of Death tapes, I never had any interest. I'm like, dude, I just don't want to. I don't want to see people dying. Like, this isn't just my version of entertainment.
Yeah,
And then it came out like years later, like the mid 2000s or whatever, that anything that had the multiple camera angles was staged. And I'm
yeah,
like, well, fuck. I don't know if I'm more disappointed that like I was this disgusted or I'm ecstatic that it wasn't real.
yeah. And it's a toss up. Like, I mean, I was excited by the fact that I could prove certain things weren't. Like, that was fun in a room full of my friends to be like,
Yeah.
look, let me. But then they would pepper in like news footage of people actually getting killed, which I never wanted to see, or animals
Yeah.
getting killed. Like I just enjoyed the stage stuff. I mean, there was a shock value to it. Like, it was pretty rad to pull the VHS like out of my backpack and be like, guess what I have, motherfucker. Like, like, there were, because a lot of my friends weren't even allowed to watch. Like, I was that kid at a young age where people could come over to my house and like see titties for the first time. So, like, that was like a big deal. They're like, "Oh, you haven't seen titties yet? Let me introduce you to Revenge of the Nerds or Porky's or whatever." Like, because
Oh
they were all
shit.
on that. They were all on that wall. My mom
That
had
is
them all
funny.
recorded. So
Oh,
so yeah, that was, and then same with horror. Like there were a lot of kids in the neighborhood that weren't allowed to come to sleepovers at my house, like because
The word spread.
because yeah, why? Because they were little bitches and they went home and told their moms. Like, they were like, go home and confess that they saw boobs or that they watched a horror movie. Like, oh, okay, we watched a movie called Friday the 13th at Drew's, and now I have to sleep in your room. And so
Oh
then
man.
my mom would get a call, and Danny Danny wouldn't be allowed to stay at my house anymore. He was only allowed to be over during the day. So
Oh. So then
that
you had to watch
happened.
horror movies during the day, and it was like,
Yeah,
we're just gonna
or
transition this shit,
yeah, no, I would just cut Danny out. He was
Oh yeah.
he was no longer
Exalted.
part of the he's no longer part of the Monster Squad. He was
Oh
out.
man. I
Um,
love that. I love that. Were there any movies like that, within these earlier memories that went too far? I mean, you mentioned Faces of Death, but even a particular movie, was there something that, upon your first watching where it was like, holy shit, this is unsettling?
the first Nightmare on Elm Street for sure.
Oh
I don't
yeah, okay.
remember. I don't remember off the top of the head what year it came out, but I mean, I was a kid. Like I don't know. I wasn't even 10 years old. So, and I remember my parents like I wasn't watching it. Like my parents were watching, and I was supposed to be upstairs in my room, and I like snuck down and like crawled across the room to behind the couch and was watching it, and then quickly regretted it. And it was the beginning. So it was like
Oh
the
man.
kill Amanda Wiss like being thrown all around the room
Mhm.
and stuck to the ceiling and blood everywhere, and I was just like I was mortified, and I can remember like sitting on the ground like with my head poking around the couch, just my jaw on the floor, and then I was afraid to go back upstairs. Like that was like the rub was like I wanted to get out, but I now was afraid to go. It was dark and I all by myself upstairs. So I just sat behind that couch for a while before I finally like either was scared enough or had I'll just say I had enough courage because it sounds cooler. So when I had enough courage to like run as fast as I could up the stairs because I also couldn't turn the light on because then my parents would know I was
Parents would
awake. Like
know.
it's this whole like yeah, I finally ran my ass all the way upstairs, and I didn't know what movie it was.
Shit.
Like I had no idea what they were watching, so I had to like take those bits of memories of okay, there's a girl getting killed in this room, and she's like stuck to the ceiling, and then there she's getting dragged in a body bag in a classroom, and then the guy's arms get really long. I don't know why he has these really the killer has these giant arms, and he can like drag them on the wall, like these weird like scattered memories, and then finally like a few years later I figured out what it was and I actually watched the whole thing and now and I'm a huge fan.
Oh
But
man, okay.
I remember that moment very vividly of sitting behind that stupid pink couch like scared out of my mind.
Was it Kelly that helped you out? You had to piece all these memories together.
Probably. I mean, or my mom was a big horror fan too, so I could have even asked her at some point, and she might have known. Because I don't
Oh,
remember
okay.
specifically like that one, but I do remember tons of times going into the video store and being like, like I remember this one scene from this one, which still happens. Like if you're at a horror convention, or now, I guess you don't even go to a convention, you just look at Facebook and in like horror groups, and there'll be someone going, "There's this. I'm trying to remember the name of this movie, but
Yeah.
there's a part," and they'll describe it, and everyone's trying to help them and figure out what it was. So we have a bigger
Yeah.
resource now. But yeah, that's the one thing that I remember. My parents love to tell a similar story that I don't remember because I was even younger, but about the Lou Ferrigno Incredible Hulk show, and that
Oh,
me
okay.
come like me coming out of my room one night because I woke up and my dad was watching like reruns of that show on TV, and it was a transformation scene or something, and I started crying hysterically, and then I didn't sleep the rest of the night because I was terrified. So that's their version of it. But I don't even. I must have been like 4 years old or something.
Okay. Sick.
But my dad likes to tell that story when like we have family in from Ohio or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, you make horror movies? That's so great. Nothing must scare you." And then my dad's always like, "Well." there
Yeah,
was a time
let me tell
when
you.
he used to be afraid of Lou Ferrigno, and then he'll like tell the story.
Have you ever met Lou like at a convention or anything?
I've like waved to him, like we've been at
Oh, okay.
shows,
Okay.
but I've never actually like
Gotten
said
to tell that story.
like
Like, I just got to tell you
no,
this really quick.
no. And I imagine it's probably a common, like, because of when the show actually came out, like
Totally.
before I was born
Totally.
or whatever, like, I'm sure it terrified lots of children. Like, it's
Yeah.
probably a common story. Like, now, if my kids watched it, that they wouldn't understand it at all. But,
Well,
but I'm
even you
sure it's,
mentioned like with transformations, like you mentioning the Toxic Avenger, and the first time seeing that and his skin bubbling and shit, you're just like, well, why am I here? And how did they like how did this actually get to screen? How did they film this? Like
yeah,
so disgusting. God damn, that movie is rough, but I love it.
it's great. I
Now,
think I have I've got, well, you can't see it. I've got a Toxic Avenger poster right there off screen.
oh shit, that's awesome. That is great. Within that movie, really quick story too. My buddy, who is kind of like like your Monster Squad. We had like three or four of us that were really close. My buddy Ryan, he had a VHS copy of the Toxic Avenger, and I remember the first time we were watching it. It gets to a certain scene, and he was like, "I have to tell you before it gets to this. For whatever reason, I don't know what happened, but there's the Muppet Babies, or maybe the Muppets, edited into it." And so, like, for the longest time, we just thought that, like, that was how the movie was directed, that all of a sudden this scene, this, like, block of, like, 5 minutes happens and it's the Muppets. Years later, we find out that it's actually a sex scene, like the sex scene in the movie that was edited out to where his parents edited over the VHS tape. So we always thought that the Muppets were in it and, like, telling friends about it. And they're like, there's not a fucking Muppet scene in the Toxic Avenger. What are you talking about?
Oh, that's amazing.
So trying to sit here and talk to buddies and other people, that's like kind of embarrassing because they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, there's not. And
Yeah,
yeah, so
that's
with
amazing.
so go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, we had lots of moments like that in high school because also I had friends that would record from TV, like from Up All Night with Rhonda Shear or whatever,
Mm.
record movies and then bring those. It's like, hey, have you seen this? Oh my God, this movie was on, but they would be censored.
Mm-hmm.
So like
The
sex scenes
TV
would be
versions.
missing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be the TV versions and like, so there were plenty of times where the first time I saw a movie, or maybe like the first 20 times I saw a movie was the TV version at 13, and then fast forward a handful of years later watching the actual version and going, oh my God, that's hilarious. I always wondered why he, you know, called him a stickhead. And then I'm like, oh, it's shithead. And they dubbed stick over shit. Like, you know, things like that
Oh my
that make no
God.
sense. But you
I
don't
mean,
know when you're
it
13.
might even be like kind of like a fun Easter egg to include into a movie where like it's just dubbed over and that's how the movie actually is, but people are like looking at each other like, did he just say stickhead? But it didn't match the mouth at all. Like, shit. I love that. I've noticed too that like Scream Factory has started. Well, not started for I think sometime maybe with the Halloween movies. They include the actual like TV cut of the movie. Have you seen that?
No. I mean, I'm sure
I think
I
I don't
probably
think it's
have
the
a Blu-ray
yeah.
with it, but
Yeah, I was gonna say it's one of the Blu-rays, and I don't think it's the box set that came out with like the 4Ks, but maybe 2 and then 3. They actually have the TV cut of the movies, which I think is fucking awesome because early on that was a lot of how I got to watch different, like horror movies like Halloween's and Friday the 13th and
yeah.
Child's Plays and Hellraiser. It was like seeing the stuff on TV, and then years later you see something that's like, whoa, that's not at all what I took in.
Yeah. Well, it's just
It's
great.
awesome.
Like, I mean, if you want to sell media, social media, physical media,
Oh,
if you want to sell
okay.
physical media these days, you have to make it worthwhile. I mean, luckily, as it being in the horror industry, a lot of horror fans are very diehard and they want to have physical media and they want to have something tangible they can hold in their hand, but they still, for the most part, want value to it. So the more you can do, the better. Like I love
Mhm.
that. Like even just putting out Pool Party Massacre.
Mhm.
Like I wanted to make sure I had special features, and I didn't want it to just be the movie on a disc. I wanted to give people a reason to want to own it, which is why there's a commentary with me and my mom, because I was just like, what can I do differently, you know? And then maybe in future releases there'll be. I try to do other things, like I tried to get it in other languages, and if there was a TV cut, like those are the kinds. I was trying to think of everything I could. So that's a brilliant,
Awesome.
because if it's something that exists, if there is a TV cut,
Hmm.
like there's I don't have it, but at some point over the last few years, somebody tagged me or sent me a link to a YouTube video where someone had dubbed the entire Pool Party Massacre in Russian.
Oh,
And
really? It's awesome.
yeah, and posted it to YouTube, and they like sent it to me like people always usually do. It's like, hey, this person stole your movie, you should take them down. But I just wanted a copy of it. Like I didn't care. Like I wasn't losing money in Russia anyway. Like it didn't the movie doesn't exist in Russia. So if anyone watches it, that makes me happy. Even though so I sent them a message asking, like telling them, hey, this is my movie. I made this, and this is rad. Is there any way you can send me the file, like even just the audio file, the entire anything that you could send me that would be amazing.
Hmm.
And I don't know why, but they took it the wrong way and like never responded and deleted the movie.
Oh man. Well,
I,
and
I
I'm sitting here saying that's awesome. I didn't think of the fact of that. Yeah, it's also posting your shit
yeah,
without. Yeah,
it
but
is, but I don't. But that's not my. I mean, I'm not a fan of pirating. It would be better if pirating didn't exist. But I'm also not super concerned about it with the things that I make. Like it exists. I can't change it. And also, I want people to.
I
It's
see it.
sound. It sounds really weird to say I make art because that's pretty subjective. But if we're gonna call it art, then it's art, and I want people to see it. So I don't
Hmm.
mind, especially like if it's super blatant, then sure. But if
Yeah.
somebody takes the time to dub it in Russian and post it, I'll share it. Like I don't. You don't need to take it down. I'll share the link.
Yeah.
Like I'll, whatever you need. Same with like people because the cover art has kind of become somewhat iconic, I guess. People are like use it all the time, like print it on shirts, make posters of it, or use it for their own stuff, or use it. I've seen it as album covers for like garage punk bands, like because
Oh
I get
shit!
tagged in
Really?
so much stuff, and there's never been an instance where I've asked anyone to stop doing what they're doing. Like I can't
Okay.
think of a single. Like there's sometimes where I'm like, hey, like you should at least send me one of those. Like if you're gonna make tumblers with the cover of my movie on it and sell them on your Etsy, like I deserve one free tumbler. But other than that, more power to you. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just never been I guess I have kind of like a punk rock DIY attitude
Sure.
towards it, and I'm like, hey, if you can make a couple bucks, and also I guess I'm also a realist. I know they're not going to make a lot of money. Like nobody's going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars selling Pool Party Massacre tumblers or whatever it is. Like if they
Yeah.
make $200, then that's rad. Then they're happy. Somebody's drinking their Tito's and soda with out of a cup with my movie on it, and I don't know. We all win, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And I certainly understand that, like you have to take into consideration like the whole aspect of like not to fully put out the business part of it, but like that's part of it, like there's logistics that go into these things, and no, I don't want to, completely be snubby, but it's also sick, I mean, understandable if you were like, I'd prefer you not have these, but you mentioned like, hey, just toss me one shit, and we're good.
Yeah, I mean that's usually my approach. I mean, there could be a time when somebody makes something that I like a product that I truly am against or something like that. Then that might be different, but that's never happened either. Like it's usually just merch, and like I
Yeah.
said, I don't know. I just like it. I like it out there. I made the movie as a horror fan
Hmm.
for. I really just made it for one horror fan, which was me. And luckily, I learned through the process that there's a lot of people, like-minded people, that actually enjoy the same stuff that I enjoy. So it
Fuck
worked
yeah.
out. So in my mind, it's kind of like our movie. Like if you like it, then you're now it's part of your movie too. Like
I
it's
dig it.
ours.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, I mean, aside from from the movie and just kind of like your posts and social media and different things, I've noticed classic or muscle vehicles. Now, I don't know, has this been an interest all your life? Is this something you're kind of recently kind of picking up on, or how does that go?
It's always. I mean, I've always appreciated like a muscle cars or just classic cars. But I'm not
Okay,
like
yeah.
a. I'm not super like I'm not like a gearhead. I don't watch like muscle car reality shows or anything like that. But my dad had a love for cars, and so I guess I got that from him. And then I took like auto one, two, and three in high school, like mostly just
Oh,
because
okay.
the teacher would let us leave campus to go to Del Taco and like smoke cigarettes. But also to learn like how to work on a like that was back when I guess you could work on your own car. Like my first car was a '73 El Camino. Um, not in 1973. I'm not that old, but in like 1994.
Yeah.
But I was able to like work on it, and I would like change my own oil and stuff like that. So I've always kind of been somewhat involved. But the vehicle that you see in my Instagram posts is a '68 Mustang that I have,
Oh
um,
shit.
and that's actually I've had my parents bought it new in 1968. Like it was their.
Oh wow, no kidding.
Yeah, so it's just a cool story. Like my parents got married in 1966. They're super poor, and it took them and they needed a car, and so they started saving whatever they could out of every paycheck, and it took them 2 years to save up the $2,800 that Mustang was brand new, like on the lot. So they were able to
Shit.
save like $1,400 a year in a piggy bank. And finally, when they had like the $2,800, they went down to the Ford dealership and bought that car. And it was their only car. Like my mom would have to drop my dad off at work, and then she would go to college, and then she would go to her job, and then pick my dad up later
Damn.
after work. Like it was their daily driver that they shared for almost a decade. And then and then they kept it, and they're like, oh, we'll just keep this old clunker and give it to our kid. They had me, and they're like, oh, when he's 16, we'll give it to him. And then
Okay.
by the time I was 16, it was a classic car, and they didn't give it to me at 16. Thankfully, because I'm sure it would have totaled it. Um, but luckily they hung on to it, and they gave it to me like 10 years later. Like so yeah, so that's like
Okay.
a family, like it got handed down. Like it's even still like my dad will come visit it and stuff like that. It's kind of fun, and it's still like registered in his name because he's the original owner. Like I don't want to change
Oh,
anything
okay.
because it's
Okay.
pretty rare to have a car that old that's only had one owner ever. So
Damn.
so yeah, so
That is
that's
rad.
the but that's my Mustang. So I drive it. I usually drive it every Sunday. Maybe I'll
So,
drive it today.
so now, as far as as having those around and having kind of that interest, have there ever been movies or anything as far as a vehicle that you saw that you're like, God, if I had the opportunity, I would love to have that thing, or God damn, that thing is awesome. May it be something in a horror movie, or even you got the old Batmobiles and Munsters
Yeah.
and all that.
Um, I mean, there's tons. Like, I want everything. Um, I want all. I want all of it. But I don't know. But I can't afford any of it, so it works out. Um, no, I mean, there's definitely super cool. Like, I remember reading Stephen King's Christine when I was in high school, like
Oh yeah.
for a book report actually, and then wanting a Christine.
Mhm.
Um, so there was a lot of that. Like and like I remember watching Harold and Maude, and I wanted a hearse. Like I really wanted a hearse for a long time. I mean, I still do. I would love to have a hearse. I don't
Yeah.
know what I would do with it, but I would love to have one for sure.
And it's funny too because like my best friend Ryan always talked about having a hearse, and it wasn't until I got into bands where I was like, "Fuck, that would have been so awesome to be able to lug around all of our gear." Like
Yeah.
I never saw a need for it, but like as opposed to having like this big ass van, a hearse might have been the way to go. Shit, I might have fucked
Dude,
up all those years ago.
you might have. I mean, it's a cool
And
thing.
a wicked look
And I
pulling up to a gig for
yeah.
that.
Well,
God damn.
I'm like a like I love all these things, but I'm also like I'm a super simple man. Like I drive a minivan and I love it. Like
Yeah.
I don't have to drive a white Chrysler Pacifica minivan,
Yeah.
but I do because I love it and it's rad. And I just go like this, and I can open all the doors, even the back, and then close them again. I don't even have to get out. It's got screens in the back. My kids could watch movies when they were younger. Now they don't. Now they have phones, but
Yeah.
and it's super practical. I could fit a ton. I could fit tons of gear. I could fit props. I could fit a 4x8 sheet of plywood in there. Actually, when you fold the seats down, it's amazing. But I think some people are surprised too that like just know me through Instagram and my movies or conventions.
Hmm.
It's kind of fun when like if they do see my car or see me out somewhere, they're like, you drive a minivan? For some reason, like they picture me driving a hearse, I think,
Yeah.
or just some rad car, or and I'm like, no, this is it.
You
But
know,
I don't
but
need anything else.
yeah, and the practicality, you know what I'm saying? Like as you get older, that's the things that you're looking for. Somebody mentions an excursion, it's like, oh, I don't need all of that vehicle. If you can have something that, or even seeing some of like the old like '70s shaggin' wagons nowadays, like those are kind of making like a up and up as far as like cats having those and throwing like a chain steering wheel on it and shit.
Yeah,
But you don't need anything else. Shit.
yeah. I mean, and like I said, I want all those things. I'm just not the kind of person that's necessarily going to go get it. Like I wear the same pair of Vans slip-ons like every day for the most part,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Crocs if I'm going on an airplane. But I'm just, I don't know. I don't buy much for myself ever.
Okay. Okay. So as far as kind of continuing on, with interest here, and then we'll move on. You had mentioned an interview as far as a disappointment within The Exorcist 2, compared to the original. Is there anything, as far as to say a sequel or possibly even a remake that comes to mind that you actually liked more than the original movie?
I actually tend to think that I prefer sequels to originals. Like, I'm
Okay. Because you mentioned like Texas
not
Chainsaw
in
Massacre
all.
2.
Yeah, I mean, not in all cases, obviously.
Uh,
But in horror, especially, there just seems to be a thing, or at least older movies, where the sequel, like part two, and sometimes part three, were like they went off the rails after the first one. Like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is like, and Slumber Party Massacre 2 are like the best examples, I think. But yeah, they just completely changed the tone and like leaned heavy on the comedy and the camp, but also maybe did a little acid or something, because like they don't make any sense. I mean, like Slumber Party Massacre 2, that makes no sense at all. I mean, there's no way to like explain how that could be a realistic situation, or even explain why this Russ Thorne is now looks like an Elvis, the leather-clad Elvis impersonator with a drill guitar. Like, there's nothing about it that makes sense unless you're on acid. But that's why I love it. And he has like superpowers, can make giant pimples appear on people's faces and whatever. Like it's like I would love to be in that. Like I doubt that there was like a meeting in a room, but if there was, I would imagine it being like that Key and Peele skit about Gremlins too. I don't know if you've seen that, where it's like all the creatives in like a board. Okay, well, it's a bunch of creatives in a boardroom and they're going over what Gremlins 2, because Gremlins 2 is another example actually,
Yeah.
where it just went completely off the rails and batshit crazy. So in horror, I tend to like the sequels better. Like I like Sleepaway Camp 2 better than I like the original Sleepaway Camp. Like
Oh shit. Okay.
I appreciate Sleepaway. I mean, Sleepaway Camp 1 is like is a real horror movie, and it's a
Hmm.
great movie and it's classic. But if I can only watch one, it's going to be 2 or 3 for sure. And so, and the same goes with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, I don't really want to go to the theater to watch the original again. Like, I don't, but I'll go watch part 2 every Saturday night if I could, And
Okay.
Slumber Party Massacre 2, Gremlins 2, Return of the Living Dead 2.
Oh yeah. You ain't
So
lying.
yeah, there's a tons. And even this is for different reasons, but even Halloween 2. the Rob Zombie one. The
Rough.
original
That's a rough
Halloween
take.
2. I actually
Yeah.
just revisited the Rob Zombie ones, and I didn't mind. I like them more now than when
Really?
they came out. I'll say that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not saying that's not saying much,
Yeah.
but I actually liked them more. Like watched them. Like they had my attention the whole way through,
Okay.
and especially the first one, like his Rob Zombie's Halloween. Like I actually like enjoyed it rewatching it. It's like, holy shit, maybe I just needed to wait 10 years, whatever, however long it's been.
Yeah, and I can't say that I hated him, but I think it's just with his stuff in general. Even like the Munsters bit, like fine, but I like his original stuff better. And I just like the things that he's putting out there as far as the longtime fan that he's been, and the Lords of Salem. People kind of shit on that movie. I thought that movie was awesome. I thought it was rad.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but now you mentioned all of these. Now, are we gonna maybe expect something of the likes for Pool Party Massacre too? Are we gonna just be
Oh,
man? I'm anticipating.
well, I I don't think anyone should expect anything because, or I don't think anyone does anymore. I should say. I think people have just completely given up on me, which is a good place for me to be because now I can like come out of left field.
Sure.
And surprise, just be like surprise, Pool Party Massacre 2.
Yeah.
Which is maybe what I'll do. Maybe I'll just start making it and not post about it.
Yeah.
But no, definitely. I've said a few times that if I don't at least shoot it this year, I'll kill myself on an Instagram live. So not a good,
Well,
not
hopefully
a good
not
thing
now.
to say. Yeah, no. Luckily, I have like 10. I have 10 months left. But
Oh shit.
so I will. So I have to shoot it this year for sure. It was just hard to get. I was so ready to make it right before COVID, and then like lost momentum, and now I have to rewrite the whole thing. There's just so many. It's like every time I think I'm ready, something happens. And life gets in the way, and all these other things. So, but no, this is the year. This is the year for sure.
I
And
love it.
and as planned, it will be my homage or version of those sequels that I just mentioned. Like I have no intention of like sticking to any kind of serious. Not that there was anything serious about part one, but there are no rules for me in making the sequel, which is the only reason why I was excited about doing it. Like I had no real desire to make a sequel. I didn't even think anyone would watch the first one to begin with. So I never wanted to make a sequel other than when the idea came to my mind that I could just do whatever I want. And if Pool Party Massacre was like my little homage to my favorite 80s slashers, then part two should be the same to those sequels that I really like. And so who knows?
Okay.
Like there could be ghosts. There could be a chili cook-off. There could be a spider gremlin. I have no idea. Yeah, at least I'm not gonna tell you.
You're not digging into 3D or in space yet, then I take it.
No. I just only because I can't afford it.
Yeah. Okay.
If I
don't know how
could
the
afford
fucking in
it,
space would happen, but
you never know.
not the worst idea. Yeah.
They're building a spaceship in the desert, not too far from here, right now.
Oh shit.
And I was actually just on a set in a studio shooting shooting a different movie called Lair of the Killer Clowns that I acted in. And in the studio space that we were shooting in, they had a spaceship set. And I made a joke.
Oh shit.
I'm like, oh, Pool Party Massacre 2 could be in space. There's a spaceship right here. So,
you don't need to wait until part 4 or 5. Like just right there for part 2.
Yeah.
Oh god, that would be fucking ridiculous.
I don't think I'll do it. But I do have I have to make part 2 first, but I do love the idea of it being a trilogy and that there being a third that I don't direct. That was the other thing. That was the other thing with horror movies from my past. I feel like there was usually a point after the second one was pretty common by like the third where the original creator, writer, and director left the franchise and didn't want to make sequels anymore, and someone else took the helm, and that's when people were like, shit on it. It was like the part 3 is usually when it's like, oh, this sucks because, John Carpenter's not involved anymore, and they gave it to this person, and now it fucking sucks. This is stupid. And I want that. Like, I don't want it to be stupid, and probably whoever makes it will be more talented than me anyways, but I just like the idea that I'm not involved at all.
I'm tied to it.
I mean, it'd still be my thing, and I'll, like, executive produce it or whatever, but I like the idea of just giving it to someone else and seeing what the hell they do, and if it's amazing and the fans love it, that's great, or if it's not, and they all hate it, and they're like, why would you let this person make this movie? He turned it into why did he shoot it in black and white? And why is it a noir? Or why is it in space? Or whatever? So be it. So.
Oh my God. I mean, so touching on, Pool Party Massacre and kind of digging into that, initially, so my first sit down and watch, I'm getting ready, I'm prepping this. This was years ago now, probably right after I think the movie had initially dropped, watching this. And the first thing that pops out to me right away is the title card sequence being Horse the Band. And then there's a guy with fucking a Horse the Band t-shirt. Where does this come from? Because this is a special place in my heart.
Well, I'm a Horse the Band fan, but most
beautiful.
But it started because Nathan, the singer, is a good friend of mine. Like, we went to junior high and high school together, and so I was there like when they became a band. Like, I still actually just sold like their first like demo to a fan of Horse the Band, not a Pool Party Massacre, because I found like a box that had all these like early recordings and like CDs, studio CDs and flyers and stuff like that. And I was selling a Horse the Band shirt on Depop. It's like a clothing app. And some guy bought it and sent me a picture of his collection. So I sent him a picture of that box, and he was like lost his mind and asked if he could buy it off me. I guess why not? But yeah, so I've just known him for since I was 12 years old or whatever. So it was just a no-brainer. I really wanted to include a Horse the Band song, and I would love to, and like in everything I do. And same with, actually, there's a band. Another song on the soundtrack by a band called Fu Manchu, and it's the same thing. The lead guitarist Fu Manchu, Bob Balch, has been one of my best friends since 7th grade also. Like, we were all in the same circle. Like, Bob actually lived with Nathan from Horse the Band, like, after high school. Like, so that was like my circle of friends. So I wanted to include my friends' music in the movie. So that's how it happened. And then the song just like Horse the Band's music lends itself to the 8-bit style. And my friend Malcolm, the animator and editor who did the title sequence for me, originally it was going to be paper cutouts, kind of like South Park, because that's something he was doing at the time for like a lot of his clients, and was like really into it, and would do he would hand cut everything and do these animations. And then as we were talking about, like, as we were shooting, he got this idea. He had the idea to do an 8-bit and asked if I would be at all interested. And I was like, yeah. And then he heard the song. I don't remember if he heard the song first or not, but once I gave him the song, it was like a no-brainer. Like, it just fit perfectly. Like, but it was going to be almost the same thing, but paper cutout. Like, it was always needed to fade in. Like, I loved the idea of it fading into it and then fading back out. So I kind of like storyboarded it, but Malcolm is the genius behind the 8-bit, and then he did, and then having that Horse the Band song was great.
Now, was it a pitch as far as your idea, and maybe you just kind of answered this, I apologize, but as far as him, kind of foreshadowing like the kills and different things within the intro there?
Yeah, so it's something that we went back and forth on it. From the beginning, I loved the idea of just foreshadowing all of them. I don't remember what Malcolm, the animator, thought, but I know Brian, my producing partner who shot the movie and edited the movie, I remember him not loving the idea of showing. He's like, you're showing every kill in the whole movie. I don't think you're supposed to do that. But one,
It's
nobody
rad.
tells me what I can't. Nobody tells me what I can't do. No, now that you said that, I'm gonna do it. No, but I just I just thought it was funny, and in my mind, no one knows that I'm showing every one of the kills until after you watch the whole
Right.
movie anyway. So it's not like I don't think anyone was taking notes and like felt that I spoiled the movie. But afterwards, I could have that aha moment of like, oh shit, and then maybe even
Mhm.
go back and watch the title sequence again. So I loved the idea, but also the movie's it's called Pool Party Massacre. It was made for $6,000. Like it's not like I showed a bunch of the kills in the original trailer too, because I was like, this is what you're here for. You're not here because you don't know if someone's going to get killed, and now I just spoiled the movie for you. Like you're here to see how I kill them all off, and if I do a good enough job and keep you entertained enough. Like that's why you're watching a movie called Pool Party Massacre.
Right.
So I don't know, I just leaned in on that, and people seem to appreciate it a lot. The title sequence, at least, like it's probably the best part of the movie,
Uh,
actually.
I mean, it draws you into the fun that you are then, going to experience thereafter. That was like the thing that was like so like fun and entertaining is then after it maintains the energy throughout the whole thing until the end where you're just like, Jesus Christ, okay, like that was, it was initially you're like, okay, where's this kind of go? Is it going to be, something that's kind of more fun and energetic in the beginning, and then you have a movie that's not necessarily dull, but sometimes that happens. You have like a introductory sequence where it's like, oh shit, this is going to be awesome, and then like the whole rest of the movie, like, fuck man, why didn't it meet that part? Like that was awesome. So
Yeah.
I think you definitely did that for sure.
Well, it depends who you ask, because there's definitely been people that think that I should die for making
Well,
it.
like you said, who the fuck's asking them? You know what I'm saying?
Huh,
Nobody asked.
that's true.
So when? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I don't mind it though. I mean I don't want to
Yeah.
die, but I also appreciate when somebody can be honest in their reviews too. I mean if they don't like it, that's great. I mean you don't
Totally.
have to lie. I don't even expect anyone to like it. So it's like a shock and a treat when someone does.
Yeah.
I expect people to. Hey, I actually remember on that note, like I remember when I was getting ready to release the movie, hearing like on podcasts, like listening to like the movie Crypt with Adam Green and Joe Lynch, and like other filmmaking podcasts and interviews with filmmakers talking about negative reviews and the impact that they had, and like most of them were on a grander scale, because I guess it would be like a review in like the New York Times or whatever, but still like talking about how you have to not worry about it, and I also remember a lot of people saying once you get over your first bad review, it helps. Like you like break that ice. Like you need the.
Mhm.
And so I was like, oh well, shit. If that's the way it works, I'm just gonna get my first bad review out of the way. Like I'm gonna get it out of the way as soon as I can. So I started looking at like indie horror reviewers online who had blogs or worked for Bloody Disgusting or Dead Central, or like just really digging in and looking at indie slashers specifically that had already come out in the last year or two, and trying to find someone that basically hated indie slashers with a comedy element, like reading as many. And I wish I could remember his name right now, because it would really help. But I found someone, and he had reviewed several of the movies that were on the like festival circuit with Pool Party that I loved, like the other movies that fit well and that I enjoyed, and he hated all of them. And so instantly I was like, this is my guy. Like this guy's tearing every movie apart. Like Night of Something Strange was a movie that toured like festivals while we were, by Jonathan Strahan, and I loved it. Like it was such a perfect like double feature with Pool Party. If you haven't seen it yet, you need to watch it. But the horror comedy of it is great. Everything about it's great. It was my favorite movie of that year, and this guy tore it apart, like 0 out of 10 stars or whatever, like worst thing
Oh
he's ever seen in his life.
shit.
So I reached out to him and was like, hey man, I really love your reviews. Is there any way I could send you a copy of a Blu-ray of my movie for you to review? It would mean a lot to me. And as a reviewer, he said, of course. And I sent it to him, and then he tore it apart. He hated it. Like other movies, like I posted it, and I was so excited to get my first negative review out of the way. I didn't know I would have hundreds more. But it was just fun to like. It was also just a fun process of like finding someone I knew that was going to hate my movie, seeking them out and mailing them a copy of it just so they could essentially shit on me. But it's fun. I recommend everyone. I recommend everyone do that.
I mean, it's almost worse too when you like actually sent out a physical copy of it too, and it's like, oh man, I can't wait to absolutely dig it, you know. And I mean, but like you mentioned, as far um, as being there to like actually do what it is that you're supposed to do, and not just kiss somebody's ass because they sent something. I mean, like there's also kind of that balance of where like I want you to actually say what it is that you think. I don't want it to be
Yeah.
where you have you jump on something and somebody is sitting here and absolutely, oh, I love this and I love that, and it's like, I didn't even love that. What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh.
So yeah, I mean it's definitely interesting within that. As far as the kills, so you kind of mentioned, and with your expertise, if you will, within horror, you get to make your own movie. How are how do you go about thinking like, okay, this is how I want to kill each of these characters? And did the filming experience change from your initial inspiration on how you're wanting to shoot these?
Well, I mean in an indie slasher, that's the most important part, right? Is how you're going to kill these people. And I'm a chronic overthinker, so that's what most of my energy went into, overthinking how each person was going to get killed, and like how can I like have Easter eggs and subtle nods to some of my favorite kills, but not make it too on the nose, but also make sure it's a rad kill, but also consider what my budget is and who's doing the effects. And so yeah, I mean, I completely overthought every single one of those kills, and they didn't all end up the way that they were written too. I mean, some of them were written much bigger, and then I had to tone them down once I was on set. Nothing too dramatic. I mean, luckily, I've been I've been working in film for it's just about 20 years now. Like that's my job full time. I have not had any other job for 20 years other than working in film, but I work on the commercial side. Like I produce commercials and print campaigns, but like big things. Like we produce things for Nike with LeBron James and Kevin Durant, and like Mandalay Bay Casino and things like that, and small things too. But that's what I've been doing for 20 years. So I'm like I have a producer's brain, and a producer usually has the budget and the schedule in their mind. So so I didn't write it ridiculous. Like I didn't write anything completely ridiculous, but I also wanted it to be good. I wanted people to like it and appreciate it. And I'm a horror fan, so I wanted it to be rad for me. But yeah, so I definitely put a lot of thought into all of the kills. And I had a little nod, like because there's a nod to Slumber Party Massacre. I knew I had to have a drill kill, like that was super important to me. And then I had to have that kind of drill, which I looked for months and months on Craigslist and like offer up for that style of drill with like the handle in the back. Like I just really wanted that. And even the drill bit, like it's not like a normal drill bit that people have in their house. I wanted it to be a certain length, and for it to look right and menacing, and also kind of match Summer Party Massacres. And then I knew I wanted a hammer kill, and like there were certain things boxes I wanted to check, but I also wanted them to be unique and clever, and so yeah, I put a ton of thought. But some of them changed. Like the shower kill was originally like in the script, it's like hedge clippers, and the killer puts the hedge clippers in and like just goes across the shower and cuts the shower curtain essentially in half and cuts the girl's body in half, and both halves fall into the shower, with just like the top half of the shower hanging, and then you can see her separated. But we couldn't do that. Like Katie, my effects artist, was like, cool, we'd have to make a full body cast and have a lower torso and like a lower half and a torso, and we can't afford that. You can't afford that.
Yeah, right.
We don't have the time, so that's where it turned into like an off-camera kill with the weed whacker. So there definitely were things that changed. but it was and that's where the idea of the tool, the different weapon off the tool board kind of came while I was going through it. I didn't want it just to be one weapon. I wanted to be able to use a bunch of different things, but justify it somehow. And then I like thought back to my childhood, and my dad had a pegboard like that with tools that were outlined in Sharpie. And so I incorporated
Okay.
that, and I just thought that would be a fun little, nod to my dad. Um, so I incorporated that, and then it gave me the opportunity to use a bunch of different weapons and make each kill kind of unique in its own way. And people seem to appreciate that too. It's like become a thing that I'm certainly not the only movie to ever use multiple weapons, but I feel like it's the only one, or at least the first one ever, like where they lean into it and you show the killer like putting the weapons back and like picking the next one. It's very
Yeah.
methodical.
Yeah. I love that the part two with the shadow board, and I love that you mentioned that like it was kind of like a nod and like an inspiration by your father. But that brought me back to Evil Dead. You touching on Evil Dead, and just that moment where he looks and it's like the shit's gone or it's not there.
Uh-huh.
It's like I love it.
Yeah.
So with I mean yourself, loving horror for the longest, and and collecting and having different things. Was there anything that that you walk off the set and you just knew you're like, man, I have to be able to keep this, and something that you just haven't been able to part with ever since?
Like a physical
Yeah.
item. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely, like, I've been selling off most of the props, which I never even thought about doing until recently. Like they've just all just been in bins in my garage and in my storage unit. Like I didn't think they had any value. I only kept them because I didn't want to throw them in the trash when I finished the movie.
Right.
But I've had so many people ask over the years that I dug out those bins and actually have been selling. And then I realized like I would love to have screen used props from movies that I like. So it
Mhm.
makes sense. I just never see my movie as something that people like that much. But I guess I do. Um, so I've been getting rid of almost everything. There were a couple things that I wanted to keep though that I figured I would keep forever. Like I have this. It's like, since it's right here. This is the like saw that cuts Leanna Vance's throat. And so when I finished the movie, there were two of them. This is the one that actually has a blade, and then there's one that the blades filed down that actually touched her throat. So there were two, and so I found these like shadow. I made this whole setup, and I gave one to Brian, my producing partner,
Okay.
who shot and edited the movie, and then I kept one, and I'll probably keep that. I don't know, unless somebody offers me a good amount of money for it, then maybe not. But that's a cool piece, and then I have the axe, like the prop axe,
Oh
and the
shit.
real axe.
Okay.
The real axe was just from my dad's garage, and then the matching the matching prop axe I still have, and I think I'll keep that just because I ended up inadvertently having somewhat of a collection of axes from movies.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
like I have the axe from the movie Axemas too, and then I have the axe from Pool Party Massacre, and then I have an axe coming to me from a movie called Popcorn Killer that I did. So all of a sudden I have like three different prop axes from three different movies, and then I was like, oh well, maybe this is a thing. Like maybe eventually I'll have like an axe room, and it'll have like a screen used axe from all these movies that I've done because for some reason I'm usually killing people with an axe. I guess. Um, so I do have the axe, but other than that, there isn't really anything that I needed, and I don't know that I need any of it. Like going back to what I was saying earlier, like I don't have a need for much
Mhm.
anymore. Like I have a ton of stuff. Like if you could see the mess that this office is right now, and just piles and piles of stuff. Like I've accumulated things just from like living at horror conventions and whatnot, but I don't need any of it, and I'm in like a purge phase. Like I also thought I would keep the severed heads from the movie just because I
Oh yeah.
toured. I brought the head to every film festival I did and every early convention, and it just was a big part of the promotion of the movie was Drew and this stupid head that he would carry around and bring on airplanes, and I would take pictures of it in the seat next to me on like a Frontier flight. I'd bring it to restaurants and like put it in a seat. And so it was a big part of promoting the movie, and people would take pictures with it. But I realized that I didn't even need that. But also, I guess the side note on that is that in the movie, it's Alexis Adams. She's the actress that gets her head cut off while she's like tied to the bed. But we couldn't get a mold of her head. When we started to do it, she had like kind of a claustrophobic panic attack, and we had to pull it off, and it ruined the mold. So last minute, I had to take a mold of my then wife's head and use that, and just put a blonde wig on it and use it as so. So in the movie, the head that you're seeing isn't even a mold of the actress's head who's getting her head cut off. It's a mold of my ex-wife's head, who was killed with a hammer in the very beginning of the movie. So, which is a fun story for an indie horror film.
Awesome.
But jump to the present. She is my ex-wife, and I have two of her heads sitting on a shelf right over there, like staring at me while I work every day. And I mean, we're still friends, but I still don't want her like staring at me. I don't need her head in my office. So I just realized, like, you know, a couple of years ago, that
lots of fans, you know, they'll pick that up.
I don't need to keep these. I don't need these. There'll be plenty of severed. Actually, there's like 6 severed heads on the shelf over there from other projects too, including my own severed head. So yeah, so those are. There's still one left. Like there's two versions of the head. There was like we made 2. We made a stunt head that actually there's like a hole drilled all the way through it, and a rope ran through it so that she swings it by the head by its hair in the end.
Yeah.
And so it needed like, it's just a wig on a head, so she couldn't really hold it by the hair, so we had to put a rope through it. And so that head was only supposed to be used for the swing, so it didn't have makeup. It didn't actually have like the blending and the silicone to make it look real, because we thought it would be in one quick shot of it swinging through the air. And then there was the head that we made to look good, that actually has makeup, and the skin looks real and the hair looks more real. And so we shot with them both and realized that they were just too different. Like they looked so different without the tone in the skin and the hair. So like we took the extreme too far. So we ended up having to shoot the whole thing with the stunt head, because they didn't look enough alike. It looked like 2 different fucking heads completely. And we couldn't shoot only with the good looking head because she couldn't swing it. And I was obsessed with the idea of her hitting someone in the head with a severed head. Like that was one of my earliest ideas, and I was not going to give it up. I would rather have the head look shitty but still get swung through the air than have it look good and not. So we ended up having to cut the scenes with the good looking head. And but anyways, the stunt head has sold, and it'll be in a fan's studio. Sick. which is rad. But the other one, the good looking one, it's still for sale. I actually just put it on sale for $499 right now in the web store. So
bam. All right. And you had the Horse the Band t-shirt. You've got a koozie in there that was Clay's koozie, correct?
Yeah, I think those are the only like things that are left.
It's left?
I think every other prop, a collector in New Zealand bought a bunch of it, like for his like horror museum, like
shit. That's
which
awesome.
is rad. Like he actually bought like my boots and my jumpsuit and like a weapon, and he's gonna like do a full like standing display of screen.
Oh shit, that's
cool
awesome.
Party Massacre stuff. So that's it was really cool. Like I don't understand it. It's kind of a
he didn't ask you like
to me.
He didn't ask you to like shave your beard or anything yet. Like I just need to make this complete.
I feel like it could be next. If he asked me to come visit,
tone this down, dude. Yeah,
I should be worried.
So, I mean, you mentioned too that the axe was something that was just in your dad's garage. Was there anything with the weed whacker or anything other things that you had on hand that you fucked up while filming there that they were like, look, man, you gotta fix this stuff, asshole. We're not just gonna have our house wrecked because you wanted to film here.
There wasn't really anything that they necessarily brought up, but there was plenty of damage control without them. Without giving them the chance. Yeah. So I mean, because they were there for a lot of the filming,
Uh,
and they're super cool. But there were some like the bat, like where the drill kill happened, where Clay got drilled. We sprayed
mhm.
blood all over that whole bathroom, and so and it didn't, and I left it on for too long. Like it was a long shooting day, and so I didn't clean it, and we did it in two different times too. Like we did
Oh
inserts a different day,
no.
and so I left the blood on for like 3 days, and when I came back, it wouldn't wash off. Like it would, it like cleaned off enough that at a glance you couldn't see it, but if you looked at the wall again, you could see it. So I ended up having I repainted the entire bathroom while luckily my parents were out of town for 2 weeks when we shot that scene. So I just like I found the matching paint in their garage and I just repainted the entire bathroom, and they didn't know. Like I shot that scene specifically while they're gone because I also wasn't sure how I would do. Like I was willing to really drill a hole through their wall if I had to. I didn't think I needed to, and I'd already built a stunt wall and painted it. Like I had a real plan to not do it, but I also needed that shot, so I wanted them to not be home, so that if it came to it, I would just literally drill a hole through that wall and patch it and paint it, and they would never know until they saw the movie.
Holy
But
shit.
luckily, the stunt wall worked completely. Like I've never had anyone tell me that they could tell that I didn't. Everyone just assumed I really drilled a hole through the wall. Um, so
Man.
it worked. And even my parents, when we watched the movie, my dad was like, "So you must have done a really good patch job because I've never noticed." And then I was like, "It's a stunt wall. I didn't drill a hole through your wall. I would never drill a hole through your wall, Dad." Um,
Don't ask about the blood
but
though.
I would have. And then they found my mom did find some blood. She was like hanging something in the bathroom and was on a step stool. And I had cleaned the walls, but I guess I didn't clean like the top of the door jamb. So she was on the step stool and it was just a pool of dry blood the whole top of the door jamb. It's like, whoops. I didn't look up there. But she just
Oh
laughed. Like
shit.
she didn't care because she watched us
Dude.
do so many of the other kills. And then like the end scene, like the bedroom full of bodies scene, that was at my house. Like I cheated rooms at my house to be rooms at the location because I knew I could. I mean, because there's that bedroom had white carpet and there was just blood everywhere, and could never have done that at my parents' house. And I'm surprised that luckily I didn't give a shit, so I just did it at my house anyways. I
Did
just
that
poured
come
blood all
out?
over my floor. No, no, I had to get all new
Oh
floors.
my
Um,
God.
but I
Oh
didn't
my.
even try. I didn't even try. Like I just was like, you know what? This is the price you pay to make to make a high art. So I just started
Uh,
dumping blood all over the carpet, and I
oh.
figured I'd worry about it later.
You like forget like the following weekend you have like different friends coming from in town for dinner and shit. It's just a
Oh,
massacre in your house.
there were plenty of times because it was there for I don't even know a year, 8 months. I mean,
Oh my God.
it was crazy how long it was there. But I was busy like with work, but and also doing post with the movie and all this and life. So
Fuck, man.
I couldn't afford to redo the floors at that point in time. But yeah, there were plenty of times when
Yeah.
people like the bug guy came to spray, and I was like, oh wait, before you walk in, I swear to God, it's fake. And he's like, what's fake? I'm like, that's all I'm gonna say. You can open the door now. And then he'd be like, oh my God. Like it's fake, I promise.
Oh shit.
Um,
God,
so,
that's
and even when I
ridiculous.
finally had the flooring guys come to redo the floor, I had to like, they came to do the measurements and give me a bid. And I had to like preface, I'm like, I'm just letting you know, it's not real. We shot a movie. Like, you're not cleaning. I'm not having you cover up a crime scene, I promise. So it
Oh
was funny.
shit.
But we
Did you have to
eventually,
show like footage from the movie or anything, or were they like, oh, okay,
no,
we, okay.
they believed me. They didn't seem, actually, they didn't seem to care, to be honest. But I mean, those,
It's worrying.
I, yeah, I feel like those are the things like as an indie filmmaker that you end up doing. Like maybe they don't happen much on a big budget movie because everything is budgeted for and everything is a prop. Like Michael Bay is an doesn't have to worry about ruining his own carpet when he's
Right.
making a movie ever because he's never going to be at his house.
Yeah.
At least now, like maybe at some point in his life. But as an indie filmmaker on a budget, like those are just like I feel like you need to be willing to make some sacrifices, and everyone was willing to sacrifice something different. But I was all in. Like it wasn't a question. Like I mean, there's even like a funny story when we were shooting this in that same room because it was my bedroom. Um, there's the scene where the axe gets swung and it gets stuck in the bed, and
Mhm.
I was like, how am I gonna? Originally, it was gonna be a prop. I was gonna use a prop axe, and I was gonna cut it to fit around the bed. But we ended up having to shoot that scene a week early on the fly. It was a whole disaster. So I didn't know. I'm like, okay, I don't have a week to figure out how I'm going to do this. So I guess I'll just get a sawzall and I'll cut a notch into my Pottery Barn bed and take a hammer and hammer this real axe into that notch, and there we go. And so that's what I did. And I had like this sawzall and I'm cutting my bed, and I just remember somebody on the cast or crew was like, "What is your wife gonna think about this?" And I'm like, "Well, luckily for me, she doesn't get home from work for like 3 or 4 hours, so hopefully I can have it patched, and she'll never even know by then." And I looked over and smiled, and all of their eyes got big, and I was like, is she standing right behind me?" And they nodded, and I look, and
Oh
she just like literally like as they asked, walked in the door. She came
no.
home from work for lunch, and she's like, "I'm not even gonna fucking ask." And she just like turned around and walked out, and I was like, meh. So
Oh
that
my God.
that was in like I just sold that bed like not too long ago on Craigslist, like a year and a half ago.
Holy shit.
I
That
just
is
used it
amazing.
the whole time, and then put it on
If
Craigslist
only
for it.
they know the importance behind it. At some point in life, hopefully they know what sacrifice went into making and
Yes,
deconstructing that thing.
yeah, hopefully,
Drew, this has been absolutely so sick, man. I have one last little finale bit here,
yeah.
but I have to say I appreciate the time, the stories, the movie, the work that you've been putting into absolutely, just entertaining us, simpletons as far as horror fans that aren't going out and making shit on their own. I absolutely appreciate and love that. But before I let you go here, I have one little bit where we go out on a Saturday night, if you will, with the Wolf Pack or the Monster Squad, and we go out on a Saturday night, go into the video shop, and we've scoured through the aisles, okay, but we landed on two movies, and we can only choose one. So based solely off of the cover art, this is a bit that I like to call Saturday Night at the Marvicks. Which movie are we going to choose here? We have some horror comedies, maybe a Tammy and the T-Rex, or you have Schlock. Just off the cover art alone, which one would we be bringing home to jam for a Saturday night?
Tammy and the T Rex.
Have you seen it?
No, I have that Blu-ray on
Oh,
my shelf, but I haven't even watched it yet.
oh my God, dude, get on it, man. Next Saturday,
I
you know what I'm
know.
saying? Just pop it in, some popcorn, and have a good time. It's amazing.
I I have a shelf, like one of the shelves. I think it's
uh-huh.
two of these shelves wide, actually. Down at the bottom is all movies I haven't watched yet, and it's like two of those wide now. There's like a hundred Blu-rays
Shit,
of just
that's
movies
awesome.
in my like my two watch stack. So
Okay. Dude, at some point, if you get the opportunity there, Tammy and the T Rex is absolutely awesome. Pool Party Massacre is awesome. Thank you so much,
yeah,
man. This has been awesome today.
thank
Appreciate it.
you.
I will have, for anybody who hasn't seen this, I'll have this probably within the next like month or so on my YouTube page, and I'll promote it and all, with like a little clip too. So thank you once again, man. You
Brad,
enjoy the rest of the day, Drew.
you too. See ya.
All right, take care. See ya.
It's so lo-fi, lo-fi, a horror guy, yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.